Hello, everyone. This is Christy Olson, Executive Director of the Pavement Preservation and Recycling Alliance. Thank you for joining us today for the roadresource.org webinar, How Much Does a Road Really Cost? Life Cycle Cost Analysis. We do have you all on mute for the webinar, and we'll be using the chat function for any questions. Please feel free to type in your questions as they come up, as we'll be taking all questions at the end of the program, but we'll be watching them as they come in to direct them to the speakers. A brief introduction before we begin. Lindsay Matoush is President and CEO, and Grace Stansberry is an account executive at Vario Consulting, the marketing firm that has partnered with PPRA to create roadresource.org. Today, they are joined by Scott Assemacher, Professional Engineer Sales with Asphalt Materials, Inc., and ERA's Technical Director, Steve Cross. We will now turn over the webinar to Lindsay and Grace.
Thanks, Christy. Good morning. We're excited to be here with you all on the second of our PPRA Network Management webinar series. And we'll start by quickly reminding you who we are and who we're not. This is me, Lindsay, and Grace, our account executive. We work with Vario, and we've been working with PPRA since 2015 on the research from what agencies want, the strategy about how to design this tool, and the development and design that went into building what you see here. What we're not is everyday people who manage pavement, or engineers, or people with PhDs. So we brought a couple of those along. Today we have Scott Assemacher joining us from Asphalt Materials, and Dr. Cross, who is the Technical Director at Asphalt Recycling and Reclaiming Association. So they're here to help field technical questions and make sure that we can answer some of what you're bringing to the table there, while Grace and I are here to help you understand how to get the very most out of the tools on the website at roadresource.org. We'll briefly cover today what is life cycle cost, and how can you use this concept in the work that you're doing daily managing your networks. We'll talk a little bit about the time value of money and how to put it to work for you. We'll explore a little how agencies are using the concepts in life cycle cost to develop defensible plans for their network management, and then we'll give you a few additional resources from Road Resource and the team at PPRA. So where did PPRA come from? PPRA is really the brainchild of the three associations: EMA, the Asphalt Emulsion Manufacturers Association; ISSA, the International Slurry and Surfacing Association; and ERA, the Asphalt Reclaiming and Recycling Association. And they came together to form the Pavement Preservation and Recycling Alliance, with the goal of helping agencies all across North America better understand how to have better roads today and stronger networks tomorrow. The singular claim and promise that has united or filtered all of the work that we've chosen to do through the website and as an organization is this: we empower agencies to be the best possible stewards of their road networks and their taxpayer dollars. So as we set out to answer that, we began this project with a research initiative. And we talked to agencies, pavement managers, inspectors, materials engineers, consulting engineers, industry experts, researchers all over North America to ask them how they were making choices about road treatment, what innovations they saw happening, what opportunities and challenges they saw, and above all, what the community needed from the industry and from these associations to help them be the best stewards that they could of their roads and resources. And in that research project, we had the opportunity to really learn from some incredible managers who are gaining ground on their network without having more resources to do so, and who are reversing the trends of deteriorating networks and declining networks. And so we boil them down into kind of four key trends. The first They have a really robust arsenal of asphalt treatments applied appropriately. So they have several different tools to choose from as they're looking at what might be the right treatment for this road at the right time. They have a lot more options to pick from. Number two, they think about their network with an eye for the network itself, and they explore concepts that help them make choices not just in regards to this individual road today, but how the choices I make on this road today might add up over time, and how a network level treatment plan for that year might allow them to spend the same amount of money differently to make greater gains. Number three, they draw upon the success and innovation of others in similar regions and climates. So part of what we've done in Road Resource is share success stories, innovation, and learning of what's happening around the country to make those successes accessible to each of you. And lastly, they're in touch with the industry at large, with the research that's out there, with the innovation that's happening, and able to make that work for their roads and their taxpayer dollars. So we built this webinar series to teach you how to use the tools on the site and to pass on the learning that we've gleaned from all these different really high-performing agencies who are figuring it out. So in May, we did one on remaining service life. That will be available under the resources section of our website. Today, we're talking about how much does a road really cost, and life cycle cost and predictive spending. You can mark your calendars for the next 4 webinars in this series. The next one after this comes up on August 29th, and it's about cost-benefit value, how to prioritize road projects to create the greatest impact with an annual treatment plan. So we'll start today with a basic question. What sort of life do you expect from a piece of pavement? Is it 11 years, 12 years, 15 years, or 40 or 50 years? We are seeing pavement managers expect both of those things, and we're seeing trends towards really high-performing pavement managers expecting more life from their asphalt pavement. As we all know, the real answer to this question is it depends. And it depends on a lot of factors, ranging from traffic, material, quality, what type of maintenance you're doing and support elements you have, what type of climate you're in, what type of trucking traffic you have. We know that there's a lot of factors, so we want you to know today is going to be a limited exploration of the concept, allowing you to take it back and make it relevant to your area and to the expectations that fit your parameters. That said, we'll take you to the website and we'll explore a tool that walks through the basic life expectancy of any road. So here under the pavement preservation section, you see the section, Why Pavement Preservation? And when you click there, you get to interact with a basic deterioration curve. So here's where we start. We've made the assumption the typical life of an untreated road is about 20 years. Again, we know that everything here is dependent on your unique scenario. And we know that over the first 75% of a road's life, that road deteriorates about 40% in quality. And then over the next 12% of its life, it drops another 40% in quality. So what that gives us is this point of accelerated deterioration, meaning that after you pass this point, costly rehab and reconstruction treatments become the only option. So the art of preventative maintenance and the art of getting the most life out of your pavement has to do with introducing a series of preventative treatments that over time add up to inexpensively add life to your pavement and see you reach 40 years or more from a single road. This does two things. One, it keeps you more frequently above what we call this mythical complaint line. And if you're on the phone, especially if you're in Director of Public Works or you deal in a place with a lot of homeowners associations, you will relate to how frequently you get phone calls from taxpayers complaining about the condition of their roads. Grace and I aren't even pavement managers, and every time someone hears that we work in asphalt, they start complaining about the condition of their roads. So we can't imagine what you guys must face on a daily basis. So the more time you can spend above this mythical complaint line, essentially, the happier your taxpayers are. In addition to that, we see managers experiencing tremendous savings. Here's a fair averager. We say that every $2 spent here, where you see that blue line above sort of a good pavement condition, or every $4 to $8 spent a little bit further down the curve can save you $12 to $18 in delayed or deferred maintenance much further down. So what we see in this idea of preventative maintenance and life cycle costs is not just how the cost savings add up, it's also how happy your taxpayers are.
So when we take a look at, if Lindsay just walked through the life cycle of a road, when we take a look at true life cycle cost analysis, we look to a resource from the FHWA that really goes through in depth all of the costs associated with your roads and takes into account things like salvage value and user costs. So if you're really interested in an in-depth analysis of the life cycle costs of your road, this is a great place to really dig in deep. What true life cycle cost analysis takes into account, like I said, salvage value or residual value, the amount that your RAP is worth at the end of the serviceable life of your road. Usually that's not very much, but it is value associated with the amount that that road costs or is worth to you. And it also takes into account sunk costs, which we don't include in the analysis because those are costs that we're never going to get back, essentially. In addition to salvage value, it also considers user costs, or what your roads are costing the public. So stopping speed and changes, idling associated with delays, as well as delays to the public in, for example, trucking or businesses that are delayed due to construction. And then it considers crash costs, or the amounts that fatal, non-fatal, and even property damage only costs can really add up to for the public. So that's true life cycle costs. However, another very commonly used way to approach life cycle costs is by evaluating simply the time value of money, or those maintenance treatments that we're investing in our road over the course of its life. Now this approach takes into account net present value, and this is the approach that we use on the roadresource.org website. So what exactly we're looking at here is how the value of a dollar changes over time. It's a little bit of an economics lesson, so just bear with us here for a moment. Net present value looks at comparing two different streams of revenue or money streams, taking into account not only how much they're worth in the moment, but how the value of a dollar changes over time. So it helps us with an apples-to-apples comparison of different streams of money, or for us, future payments that we'll have to make. So on the example on screen, we're looking at the cost per square yard intervening on a specific road. And we've got intervention at year 5, year 9, and year 15 on this orange plan. Or we could consider this blue plan with an intervention at year 15. So what net present value does is brings all of those costs into the value of a dollar today, taking into account a 5%, in this case, 5% inflation and a 2.5% interest rate. So when we work out the math, we're able to see that although the constant dollars would add up differently, the net present value demonstrates that spending money sooner in year 5, year 9, and then year 15 is a smarter choice. It will cost less than deferring a larger lump sum later in time. So net present value, how do we get to this calculation? This is the way FHWA recommends we calculate it, and you can pull out your pens and papers right now if you'd like and start working this one out, or we can jump over to the website where we've calculated it out for you.
So this tool and most of the tools that we cover in the Network webinar series are available on roadresource.org under the Network Optimization tab. And the first place we're going to take you is Lifecycle Cost About, where we're exploring the concept. And as Grace explained, this tool, the way that we've designed it, is simplified to get at the overall concept, and it relies on essentially net present value. It does not account for many of the other very complex, very specific, and very unique to you variables like salvage value or user cost. If you're interested in that, at the bottom of the page here, we link to the FHWA example where you can explore contextualizing that in a much more specific way. But we'll take you back up to the top and we'll look at how we're teaching the concept of life cycle cost here. One thing I'll mention, we hear a lot of agencies who, if you deal with a lot of electeds, or you're ever explaining this to legislators or trying to defend sort of a forward-thinking plan, imagine sitting down and having this in your arsenal as you're explaining or justifying the value of a defensive or proactive approach to maintenance. So we know that every proactive pavement manager is answering two questions. What is the best treatment for this road right now? And what combination of treatments over time maximize the life of my road? So what we've got here, those letters of condition, pavement condition, A through F, are all clickable, and we'll start with excellence. And here we're comparing and ultimately quantifying a conventional approach to pavement management, or what we would call a worst first approach, which has you doing essentially nothing but a mill and fill every 11 years. That's that gray bar. And you see we let the road fail, we mill and fill it, get it back up to excellent condition, let it fail again, do no preventative maintenance, and then mill and fill that road, getting it back up to excellent condition. And that's just kind of our repeat default worst first plan. We compare that with an optimized strategy, where every 1 to 5 years, we're doing some sort of preventative or proactive treatment that keeps our road, yet again, above that sort of mythical complaint line, and also protects our investment over time. These examples were all produced by a pavement management consultant who works with agencies around the country to help them design these sort of optimized proactive plans and really see how their resources and the savings add up. So the sample network we've used has 100 centerline miles, and you see the total paved area there is about 1.5 million square yards. So if we scroll down and just compare the conventional approach to this optimized strategy, we see that the optimized strategy over 50 years saves us $126 million, which is a really tremendous way to protect taxpayer resources and roadways. However, we know that not every road that you're maintaining is starting in that really excellent condition. So let's look at what happens if we start this proactive preventative plan a little further down the curve. So if you click on Be There for Good, you see, okay, we're starting when the pavement has deteriorated just a little bit, getting that pavement good again and keeping it there with another approach to an optimized strategy. And the cost of maintaining that road still saves us about $120 million over the course of 50 years or more. If we let the pavement deteriorate further, you can explore these different treatment plans on your own, but this essentially says, okay, well, we did that worst first thinking for a while, but what happens if we only do that once and we get that pavement good and keep it good We still save $110 million over the next 40 years. You can see what happens when it goes to poor condition and then to very poor condition. And still, even letting that pavement fail for some period of time, but starting sort of better late than never with an FDR to get that pavement good again and then protect it, we still save $81 million over 50 years. So I think the message here is loud and clear. And we like to walk through these examples because they're such a great tool for you all when you're sitting down with different decision makers or justifying your approaches to taxpayers and helping them understand the ways that you are really advocating for your roads and protecting those resources.
And one thing I'll highlight here as well, it's not just that we're intervening at optimal times. This is a great way to manage the road, of course. But we're also electing to spend money sooner, making the most of that time value of money. In other words, spending $1 that's worth 100% of $1, rather than waiting 15 years for inflation and interest to come into play. So one of the questions that comes in when we're talking about some of this money comparison is, why bother comparing money that I don't have yet, I won't be able to invest, and I won't spend for 40 years? The truth is that this is a life cycle comparison to help us really evaluate the truth of the situation. While we may not see that extra $700,000 in our bank account, we are in fact saving it. And so this is where we want to bring in Scott Ossenmacher, who has some experience, or has quite a bit of experience, using formulas like this. We first interviewed Scott in 2015 when we were doing research for the website and for the initiative. And at the time, Scott was working agency side, so he was managing a network of his own. And today, he's at Asphalt Materials teaching these concepts to other agencies, really having the chance to use them and put them into play in different scenarios. So, Scott, do we have you on?
Yep, I'm here.
Fantastic. Can you help us to understand a little bit about how life cycle cost has helped to reframe things or inform decisions?
Well, first of all, the website itself and all the different tools it offers gives you some things to point towards, industry standard type of a thing to point towards. In this particular tool, the cost calculator, it provides a tool to validate that you're spending smarter for those decision makers. Because as we know, the expectations of the public are always greater than what the budget can support. So we got to show that we're spending, we must spend smarter. And so we're really expected to work many miracles within limited budgets. But it's something that has to be done. It's the right thing for our showing that we're adequately spending our taxpayer dollars, and it's our duty to be fiscally responsible with road maintenance.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, we have asked Scott to walk us through an example using the calculator. But before we get into the example itself, I want to take us over to the website and give you guys a tool to make sure we highlight, which is the user account. Now, the website has this unique feature where you're able to contextualize all of the calculators on the website to your own relevant data and costs, including life extension that you expect to see from various treatments. So the first thing you should do, I would recommend everyone goes ahead and makes an account for themselves so that you're able to compare your own costs and life extensions as you use these tools. For those of you who don't or haven't made an account, the numbers that you see are auto-populated based on averages across North America. So between the U.S. and Canada, their average costs and life extensions for these treatments. So make sure to go ahead and do that. You can also update things such as your units of measure, currency, and obviously standard or metric.
And we'll just add that no one ever sees this data but you. So once you have created a profile, every time you're logged in, it will show your data. But even as the web developers, we do not have access to your data. So it's protected, and it's something that's strictly there to make the tool as useful as possible for you.
So let's see here, before we get into that, Scott, if you wouldn't mind walking us through Lima, Ohio.
Yeah, so to give a little background here, just a summary of how we got to where we were back in March in this year in St. Louis. Lindsay and Grace put on super user training, and the Heritage Group, that's our mothership, if you will. We sent individuals there for training on the PPRA website. We had individuals there from companies out on the western side of the U.S., and then individuals from our company here in the Midwest. And what we went there to learn about the site, and it was a longer 8-hour type of a workshop. And so what we wanted to do, we wanted to take that and kind of train the trainers, go to our companies and share some of this with the site, but then shrink it down into a smaller 3 to 4 hour type of a setting workshop. So we put together our own, customized for our purposes, to share, to ultimately, again, share with our customers, the agencies. And we went out to Spokane, Washington, to do a session with Western States, one of our companies, and then we did another one earlier in the year in Marion, Ohio, with our asphalt materials folks. And when we did that, we thought for this particular tool, we wanted to be able, or for all the tools for that matter, we wanted to be able to put together an example that was close to them, close to home, something that hit their area, that made sense to them. So we talked to our folks, and I use the Lima, Ohio example, that we went down to Marion, Ohio, and put together an example here. I got with one of my colleagues, salespeople, and he said, yeah, I've got a good example for that. So we had a company, an agency that had just a typical mile of primary road that they had. In this particular case, was a lot of the HMA over top of old brick pavers, and their traditional approach was very simply to go and mill and fill it every 10 years, do a major mill and fill, a 3 or 4 inch mill and fill. And they weren't happy with the amount of maintenance that they were having to put into that. Not too long after they put it down, the cracks were coming through. They didn't have a very good preventative maintenance program, so they were just going in there and spending a lot of money on reactive maintenance, doing patching and stuff in years 7, 8, 9, 10, and they were sick of doing that. So I want to explain that when we use this example that we're using for this, we didn't have this tool available at the time. So we had to go and explain to them about the different tools that they could be putting into their toolbox to help, again, get on that road earlier, put together more of a management plan for that particular 1 mile asset. And so we were able to come out with the same outcome, but had we had this tool available, it would have been greatly beneficial to have this visual tool to summarize this long-term thinking, this long-term concept, and show these scenarios. Now, there's 1,000 different ways of putting together scenarios of the different mix of fixes that could be done over a 40-year period. But what we end up doing in their particular case, and we'll assume, as Grace is putting some of these numbers in here, that we had an inflation percentage of 5, 2.5 interest rate, and then Grace up there in the top right, we're just going to use 13,000 for a round number for our 13,000 squares for our round number for our typical 1 mile county road. So their typical way of treating this is just every 10 years going there and doing a major mill and fill, so we'll stick those numbers in there. And one thing I do want to mention, and Grace kind of gave the segue for this, is that as these numbers are being inputted, we're able to use my personal numbers, my data, my cost per square that we already have within my profile for this particular agency, so that it's customized to be able to put in all these values for that neck of the woods. So it's real numbers for them. It's not numbers that are foreign. It's real numbers for them. So that's very, very beneficial for that individual agency. So what we talked about, I talked with my colleague, and what would be that plan? And a fairly aggressive, optimized plan. So we thought, in lieu of doing a major mill and fill, we'd start off with a full depth reclamation, getting all the way down and resetting the clock. So we've got a good, solid base to work with from this point forward on up. And then in our climate in this area, we know we're going to there's you get the wrap in the HMA, so you see some premature cracking, things like that. So we thought in year 3 we're going to come in and do a rejuvenating fog seal. Year 8, come do a crack seal. And then year 12, come and do a bit more of a surface treatment. We're going to do a double micro. And so now we've got ourselves a nice, 12 years out, a nice brand new surface. Everyone thinks it's probably HMA, but we're preserving our pavement. 5 years later, come back in, do a crack seal again, seal up those tight cracks. That same year, we'll do a fog seal. That way, we've got a nice black surface there. Because the idea is that a few years later, year 22, we'll do a cape seal. Again, this is a road type of application on a primary road, so the chip seals would be a good option for this particular agency. If we're in an urban area, maybe that wouldn't be the case. You'd have a different scenario there. What type of trees? Maybe you'd be sticking with microsurfacing or something along those lines. So after our cape seal, we'll come back and crack seal it again 5 years later, kind of that same cyclical thing. And then finally, not finally, but now we're at that 30-year. We've preserved this pavement for 30 years. Now we're looking to get down and take out some of that stuff from underneath. We'll go in and do a cold recycling, do a 4-inch cold recycle with an 1.5 inch top. So they're going to have a new HMA surface on a recycled layer in between. We still got our solid. When we did the full depth reclamation, we still got our solid base down underneath it that we've treated and not allowed that water to protrude down in there, so that's all in reasonable shape. And then come back in and kind of go through the cycle again. We're going to come back with the rejuvenating fog seal in 32. We'll do a crack seal in 37. And then finally, to get to even outcome here on year 40, we'll do another microsurface with a double seal. So a pretty darn aggressive optimized plan here over the same period of time. So we look here at the bottom, we can see on the conventional side, $146 a square, total 1.9, and then on our optimized side, about 86 a square and 1.1. So choosing the optimized strategy here, we were able to have a savings of just under $800,000 over that life, which is not an insignificant number.
Especially when we consider the total paved area. If we think about this on a really grand scale, let's say we make this, instead of 13,000, 130,000 square yards, how that number really adds up over time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Great to see. Thank you for walking us through that, Scott. One thing I want to highlight before I ask you a couple more questions is how this calculator works as we were inputting. You were able to watch me sort of type in as Scott was describing all of the factors and the treatment plans that he recommends. And so what we're evaluating really or inputting, in the first column is the year. Notice that we write that as year 1 or year 11 or year 21 instead of year 2019 or year 2020, etc. We input the treatment type. And then it's going to auto-populate our cost in constant dollars, which is how much that treatment costs me today. You can also go ahead and just edit and make changes to those numbers if the live example is not quite right. And so then it will automatically calculate the future cost of that treatment, which is how much that treatment is going to cost you in year 21 or in year 31. It will cost you more money on account of inflation. And then it automatically calculates present value, which demonstrates what that future cost means to you or is worth to you in today's dollars. So it accounts for both inflation and interest rate. And you can see it totals below to give us that net present value for the whole plan over the life of your road. And that's what we use to calculate or evaluate these savings here below. If I go back here and I go back to Scott's original problem with a project that's 13,000 square yards, what we see is that in evaluating the savings using net present value instead of constant dollars, we get a big difference. So if we were to just compare the cost of each treatment based on what those treatments cost today, it would appear as though we had only saved about $360,000, when in fact, the way that those dollars grow over time, we've saved quite a bit more with the optimized plan.
And I see that we have some of our northern friends joining us from Canada here. So one other thing we'll point out, if you haven't already logged in and made changes to your profile to set it to talk to you in metric unit, you can inside of each calculator quickly switch things to Canadian dollars and metric units, or switch it back.
So Scott, after you went through this exercise, what did it tell you? I mean, what did you learn from it? What did the agency take away?
Well, through the discussions, like I said before, we weren't able to use the tool itself, but the concept was used in the discussion. And it just got them thinking in a different way. They're now considering other treatment options. They've got some other ideas for treatments in their toolbox that they could be considering. So that's a huge step in a great direction for that particular agency. And they're looking beyond just what today's needs are. They're thinking, oh, how am I going to manage my asset and protect my investment in the future? So I'm looking at today's treatment, but then I'm also thinking about what's my next treatment going to be? When's that going to be? Looking ahead at how they might be maintaining this asset over time.
Yeah, invaluable.
Another thing we'll just point out here, and thanks Mark Ishii for raising this, is that because of the way that we have treated this road at 40 years for a significantly lower investment of cost, you have the same condition of pavement. And over the course of that 40 years, your pavement is at a much more rideable condition for a much greater percentage of time. Scott or Steve, I'll ask you to speak to this. We have a couple questions, and you guys can type questions in the box down there at the bottom, and we may take a few more as we go, and we'll definitely leave some time at the end to answer them. But Scott, we have an attendee asking, crack sealing only every 8 years. Shouldn't it be done every year?
I'm not sure if it should be done. I wouldn't say it should be done every year. It depends upon, each road is going to react differently to climate, other things, canopies, there's all kinds of variables. That's something that has to be evaluated for each individual road by each individual agency for what their climate is and the challenges they have. Yes, to be honest with you.
And we do know that there are agencies that crack seal much more frequently than that. This isn't designed necessarily to be a recommendation for, of course, all roads. This is a sample optimized plan over 40 years, but certainly more frequent crack sealing is something that you could consider.
Yep, you're correct. That's right.
Great. Well, thank you, Scott.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to walk us through this. We'll just point out a couple of other tools on the site before we jump back into a little bit more about what life cycle cost can do for you. One thing that this tool does not do clearly is, and I think this is a question that one of our attendees was just asking about crack sealing, is recommend when do you use what treatment on your road? And so I just want to point out a couple tools that can be useful to you in exploring that. There's this section called the treatment toolbox, and the two big things you should pay attention to here for kind of learning and exploration are which treatment is right for my road, and that allows you to explore, we'll take you there in just a second, explore different treatments for your scenarios. And then the Treatment Resource Center, which is where the lion's share of technical resources can be found on this website. And so we'll take you to pavement criteria here. And we'll show you this is a tool that allows you to input different variables about your particular pavement, like pavement condition, primary distress, and you'll notice that as Grace is inputting different factors pertinent to her pavement, treatments that are not recommended options are graying out, and treatments that are potential candidates to explore are left in black. As you hover over each one, you see roughly what type or part of pavement that treatment addresses. And then if you click on any one of those treatments, it allows you to learn a little bit more about it. So as we spoke about in the beginning, so critical to pavement managers stretching their resources further is having a really robust toolbox of treatments. And this is a great toolbox to explore. If you don't know what criteria might best describe your pavement, there's little question marks. And you'll see this throughout every calculator tool on the site that explain a little bit about what we're talking about. And there's a section here called Pavement Photos. So if you look at the top right, you click on Pavement Photos. This is where you can either sort by the primary distress, and it will only show pictures of pavement exhibiting that distress. Or you can scroll down and look at a series of photos from least distressed to most distressed. And when you see something that looks similar to what you're experiencing with that pavement, you can click on it, and it will give you some potential solutions. So those are a couple additional tools in your toolbox as you really try to figure out what is the best possible treatment plan for your road over time. So we'll go back and talk just a little bit further about life cycle cost and how we see agencies really using this. Kind of to Scott's point earlier, we know that your job is a hard one, and we know that you constantly have less resources than you need to manage the needs of a declining and deteriorating network. We know that you face pressure from electeds and changing priorities, changing electeds, and pressure from taxpayers. So as you look to balance all of that with a defensible plan that demonstrates a proactive approach to pavement maintenance, we see this tool useful in a few ways. Big numbers tell big stories. So incremental savings are one thing, and they're important because every dollar counts when you don't have enough resources to meet your needs. But over time, the way savings add up and the way that the time value of money accelerates your savings over time is a very valuable tool in explaining this to electeds or legislators. It allows you to yet again demonstrate forward thinking, and it's such an important part of combining savings, looking for every saving everywhere. Because as we're saving, we're looking for two things. How do we save money today or over time? And how do we spend smarter? How do we take, if we're not going to get any more money, how do we just spend the money differently in ways that help us take the very same roadway network that we're responsible for and see it gain ground? So several different tools to be available or to be aware of on the website that help you with this conversation. First, how do we just spend less money? Well, you use treatments with a lower equivalent annualized cost. For those who have been to the website, all of these tools are under the network optimization section of the website. And the equivalent annualized cost allows you to see essentially not just what is the cost of this treatment, but what is the cost of this treatment divided by the serviceable years that that treatment gives me. You can also essentially spend dollars that are worth more by putting a time value of money to work for you That's what we talked about today with life cycle cost. And then you can spend dollars differently in ways that help you gain ground through remaining service life. This is a really powerful tool on the website. It's an excellent place to start if the network journey is newer to you, by simply inputting a treatment plan and looking at, for that treatment plan, how much life are you injecting into your network that year, and how does that compare to the life that you're losing each year as your network slowly deteriorates. If you're not adding more life than you're losing ground. So remaining service life is a really powerful tool in helping you explore how you spend that money differently to gain ground. And then lastly, how do you get the biggest bang for your buck with projects? So the cost benefit value tool is one that we'll be talking about on our next webinar. And that's a tool that helps you take into account best bang for your buck strategies along with real constraints of your network, excuse me, like traffic or cost of treatments. So that's another tool for you. One thing more that we always like to mention is the site is not designed to replace a pavement management system. We know that a very well-utilized pavement management system that has valuable verified data and also that has been loaded with the right sort of arsenal of treatment possibilities will do much of this heavy lifting for you, but these are all concepts that help you move the needle on your network and can be valuable to you in what we think is a very admirable and difficult job of communicating the important stuff that you do every day to a really broad range of decision makers and audiences that have expectations of you. A couple more tools that Scott asked us to mention that he has found particularly valuable. First is the sustainability calculator. This is under the pavement preservation section of the website. And this allows you to say, well, it's not just about saving money, but there's also treatment plans and treatment options that are much more environmentally friendly. And so this calculator actually allows you to compare cost savings in addition to environmental impact. And then the structural calculator, this is under the recycling section. And what we recognize about many of these treatments is not just do they save money, not just do they save time and mitigate impact on the environment or reuse existing resources, but on the recycling side, they actually help you gain strength or add structure to the road. And if that's a key parameter in determining which treatment is right for that road, then this calculator will be something you'll really enjoy spending some time with.
And another thing that's important to mention is that the calculators on the site are great tools for you to go to learn more and try out things on your network. But of course, nothing can really replace sitting down with somebody and talking through your specific constraints, issues, requirements. And so for that, we have a place on the website to direct you to EMA, ERA, or ISSA members that you can search in your area. All you have to do is click Ask an Expert or find a contractor or supplier anywhere on the site. It's kind of sprinkled throughout. And that will really give you the chance to ask some of these like highly tuned questions and get spot-on answers. At the same time, we're also putting out lots of information on the e-News Blast. Many of you may have heard about this webinar from that newsletter. And what we do is really curate a lot of what's going on in the industry, success stories in a concise manner to really give you just once a month relevant information that's important for you. And we promise not to spam your inbox with that. So go ahead and sign up for that on the homepage as well. As like and follow us on social media for really helpful bite-sized tips and tricks and useful information on history, case studies, etc., that are going on in the asphalt industry.
So with that, I'm going to start answering some of the questions, or at least directing some of the questions that came in through the website. Mike asks, where is this example taken for costs, i.e. temperature extremes and mixed types? And that's I believe that's the examples in the life cycle about section. And Mike, it's not taken from one particular scenario. We asked James Golden, he's with Pavement Management Group, and we asked him to put together a series of examples that he felt could be fairly typical for various agencies. Again, just a reminder, this isn't designed to be a recommendation, it's designed to explore the concept. Does this take into consideration the increased cost of administration for double or more the amount of contracts? It does not take that into account directly. Jacob, thanks for asking that question. As we said, it's a fairly simple way to look at net present value. I suppose the closest that you could get in using the tool is how you enter the cost pertaining to that treatment. If you wanted to sort of factor that in, I guess you could explore that, but that's probably the closest that it would get. And Steve or Scott, feel free to pipe in if you have anything to add on this.
No, I would agree with you on that, Lindsay. If you've got something that you're talking specifically about, a road or a project or what have you, know it's going to be a large-scale project, and you're expecting some economy of scale savings there, you could add, like you said, you could add, a factor within there, or take off a factor, if you will, within that upfront cost type of a thing. So yes, you're right. You could adjust those costs specific to your situation.
Thank you. While you're talking, Scott, we have a question here. Have you ever placed a fog seal over a microsurface?
I can't think of a time that we have. We haven't had any reason to. Okay. A microsurface is a pretty nice tight surface.
Yeah. I've got the question box open, so it can be done. It can certainly be done. I'm fielding some answers from other folks on here who have done it. So the answer to your question is yes, it can be done. Steve asks, is there any way to compare two optimized plans? There's not at the moment. That's a great question. But what we are adding to the website this year is a capability of downloading these examples into Excel. And that will allow you to save some of this work and to be able to compare multiple scenarios. Steve, I have a question for you. In year 30 of the optimized plan, you suggest the CIR. Is this possible when the original road is only 4 inches thick?
That would just depend on the quality of what's underneath it. If you have a good solid base, aggregate base, you probably could, but we typically recommend that you have at least 1 inch of asphalt underneath it, so you might have to drop back to a 3-inch CIR.
Okay, thank you. Can this tool be used for airport pavements as well? Steve, while you're talking, do you see any reason why it could not?
It should be, yes. It should work just fine. You might have to adjust the life on some of those, but it should work just fine.
And that's another reason to explore that the user profile tool, where you're able to actually enter data that is relevant to your individual area. So if you needed to adjust life expectancy, you can do that in that part of the tool, and it will repopulate the website for you.
We have a question. The FHWA publication that you cited is from 1998. What are the recent changes in life cycle cost analysis? I hear many presentations at TRB and other conferences, and how does PPRA incorporate that? To answer that question, as we said, the calculator that's on the website simply evaluates net present value in terms of life cycle cost. It's not a comprehensive life cycle cost analysis. And the updates that have been made, likely at those presentations that you've seen, don't affect net present value, as this is sort of a universal standard for evaluating money that comes in at different times or you're expected to spend in the future. And it simply takes into account inflation and interest rate, and doesn't consider sort of the different and ever-updating costs associated with user costs or crash costs, et cetera.
Okay, another one for Scott or Mark Ishii. Have you stacked microsurfacing on top of itself, and if so, how many times?
That can certainly be done. Actually, I mean, microsurfacing is a great rut filling option. So we in Monroe County have done that before. We'll come in and do a rut fill application and then come do a double lift of microsurface on top. It's definitely stackable.
And Mark is fielding questions with me online as well, and he says yes, up to 3 times with no concerns. Thanks for asking, Troy. Over the course, in separate treatments over the course of 21 years. So that's 3 times as separate treatments over the course of 21 years. And then if you have any other questions, we'll have just a couple more. One comment, the analogy I use to justify preventive intervention on roads that look good to elected officials is you don't wait for your car to be rusted before starting anti-rust treatments. It's the same thing for a road. If you wait for us to set in your car door, you'll have to spend more to repair the door or even change it. I think that's a great analogy, Frederick. Thanks for sharing that and sharing what's working for you. Another comment about what people are experiencing with the question around microsurfacing. Multiple lifts of microsurfacing work great. The first course can be used as a leveling, and the second course works as a great final surface. Go ahead.
One thing that I just want to circle back to, in case you didn't catch it the first time, every single one of the calculators on the website has this unique feature, how to use this tool. So if you start applying the calculator and you get a little bit lost, don't forget there's a place for you to go back to really make sure you're using it or inputting your own data in line with the way that the calculator actually calculates or the formulas are functioning.
Well, thanks for the time today, and thanks for the great discussion and all of the questions. I see one more, and I'll just share this out because this looks like an excellent resource. The NCAT report 19-03 is a good reference for best practices for life cycle costs, published May 2019. So if you are excited about the concept of life cycle costs and looking to explore some of those much more specific and granular or unique variables about salvage value or user costs, I assume that is a good resource for you. Thanks for piping up and sharing that. So again, thanks everybody for being here. We'll look forward to seeing you on the next webinar, and hope you're enjoying what you're getting out of the tools at roadresource.org. Scott, Steve, and Mark Ishii, thank you for joining us and helping to answer questions today. And happy 4th of July, everyone.
Lindsay. You guys are awesome. Well done.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Lindsay, Grace, Scott, and Steve. We really appreciate you guiding us through life cycle costs. Just a reminder that the recording of the webinar will be made available to you by email. You should get email with the link within the next 24 hours. Thank you.
Thanks.